We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani, and I have the illustrious Roland Bradley here with us here today, one of our Couples Academy practitioners. We're going to jump right in. We're in this series on separation and divorce. We've been in it for a couple days. We're doing part three. Part three, when the one who loves you wants to leave. And we're taking this thing slow. We want to comprehensively go through it, because I think it's going to be helpful for people as we move forward. Really quickly, Last Chance Weekend is this weekend. That's right. It actually starts tomorrow. We're excited about that because we have some amazing couples that are looking for transformation. So we're asking that you send your prayers, your positive vibes, all of that good energy, because it's going to be necessary as we take them through this journey. Because guess what? 2023 is not going to look the same. And so even though the majority of the couples who are coming really fit into what we're talking about today, I believe they're going to see a transformation as we move forward. All right, let's get into it. We're talking about the reasons why people leave. Now, once again, the reasons generally apply for both men and women. It is no different. There may be certain areas or specifics that may be unique to gender, but ultimately we're dealing with the same thing here. And so I want to put it in simple terms and kind of walk through this. Husbands, wives, when they leave, it's the result of one of 3 things. Either they are being pulled out, they are being pushed out, or they are being put out. Okay. And I want to walk through this and engage you in a conversation along with Roland so we can make this simple. So, number one, let's talk about when a husband or spouse in their marriage is pulled out of the home. Typically, it is when they are leaving for another man or another woman. Okay. There's a strong emotional pull on a person's heartstrings. And so that drives them out. Now, when we're dealing with just sexual affairs, if it's just a sexual affair, then that's all it is. It hasn't tapped into that emotional side. But once there's an emotional entanglement that takes place, you begin to question, do you even love your spouse anymore? Do you even want this relationship? And interestingly enough, it's hard to be in love with 2 people at the same time, or what we perceive to be in love feelings. And so when there are strong emotional ties to an affair partner, your emotions are going in one direction and pulling from the other. So you begin to feel more for and less about the spouse that you have. Roland, weigh in on this, because this is something that, people often think, oh, it's just emotional. It wasn't physical. But that emotional piece can really cause you to make some life-altering decisions that do not serve you or your family.
And that's why it's so important. You use that word entanglement. We get outside of the home and we allow other people to tap into our emotions. And what happens if we take our emotions that belong to our spouse and pour into another person, then the spouse becomes empty. That emotional bank becomes empty. And we find ourselves in situations that the other person now, they feel like they're in love. And now you're caught twixt in between trying to make a decision on which direction to go in, which in all actuality, you should not be pulled in that direction in the first place. And so now this person has fallen in love. They have deep feelings for you. The infatuation is on steroids. And you think that now you have found this new spark in life, when in all actuality, it's a fuse that is about to go out and you don't even recognize it. You don't even realize it. And we talk about this grass being greener on the other side. It really is a real thing that people don't, we have made it cliche, but it's a real thing that we feel that way. So people go thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, only to realize that the front that was put on, when it's taken away, now you find yourself in a real situation. right? Because you wasn't expecting all of this. When the makeup comes off, when the hair comes off, when he's not driving the car you thought he drove, when he doesn't have the job you thought he had, now you really find yourself in a situation that you have left your good thing for something that's not even real.
Wow. And that's the case in most of the instances. Interestingly enough, the affair partner that most men and women choose typically don't hold up to the actual spouse. They're less than in so many different regards. They don't look as good. They may not be as stable financially. That happens a lot. Not always, but it happens a lot. And so the question is, you would leave me for that? Well, they were searching for something that they felt they did not have and were willing to make poor choices to get that. And then once they find themselves in that situation, they realize, oh my God, what am I doing? How did I make this decision? And so a part of that infatuation you're talking about is really looking at a person through through a false narrative, because you believe that they are the end all to be all. But in those cases, when those affair relationships become now the primary relationship, and we're now out of the infatuation stage, and I can see you for who you really are, because when we're dating each other, we're putting our best foot forward. We're presenting the best image, but then the reality comes out and we see the hardcore truth. Then we begin to reevaluate and question why we made these decisions in the first place. But for those who are pulled out, there are certain characteristics that are associated with this type of decision. Usually they're very resolute in their decision. Because of my emotional attachment and this in love feeling that I've had, somehow there's a definiteness to my decision to leave. I'm resolute, I'm definite, I'm uncompromising, there's nothing to talk about, is over. Number two, there's an urgency oftentimes for an immediate divorce. Now, whether they actually file papers or not, they feel ready to finalize their decision. In their mind, the marriage is dead. And that's the challenge. Like, you believe everything is so wonderful over here. And the more you believe that, the more you believe that everything is dead, horrible, can't be revived. And so there's no point in moving forward. I mean, I have my life to live and I don't want to be in a dead end situation. So I'm going to transition on. And then number three, interestingly enough, the fallout of leaving the home is different for the one who's leaving and the one who's being left behind. For instance, there's this sense of calmness that the person who leaves have. And the question is why? Well, it's because they're leaving an unsatisfactory marriage, not for solitude, not to be alone, not to start life anew, but they're leaving one relationship for another. And they believe that they're in love, so their adjustment period is so much easier, while the spouse who's been left behind suffers tremendously.
We like to use the term we're separating because of irreconcilable differences. We use that loosely because that takes off the responsibility of me having to do the work that I need to do to keep the marriage together. And so oftentimes people find any excuse to leave because they don't want to put the work in. They don't want to rectify situations that can easily be done if they take out the time, their willingness to learn, change, or give up time, money, and effort to put in. But we like to take this side of, oh, this is going to be much better. I'm going to get it right this time. Right. I have all the tools that I'm going to need to get it, to fix it this time. Instead of taking that same energy with the spouse you already have, we want to pour all of our energy into the new person who we say we're in love with. Right. And I know what to do this time. I'm not going to do what I did the last time. And I'm going to make sure that this relationship is better than my last relationship, the one that you are just up and then leaving. And so oftentimes we're jumping from what is it called? From the skillet to the frying pan. You just jumping from one situation to another and not wanting to put in the work. And that's so unfortunate. And it's very sad.
It is very sad. Listen, guys, we're talking about when the one you love wants to leave. We're going to take our time with this. We talked about how oftentimes a person feels pulled out of their situation, and that's the result of why they leave. When we get back on the other side, we're going to talk about how people are pushed out. All right, you're watching the Couples Academy show. Stay tuned. Be right back.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about when the one that you love wants to leave. We talked about how oftentimes people feel pulled out of their relationship. But now we want to talk about how people are pushed out. Now, what does that mean to be pushed out? It means that they've made the decision to leave out of their frustration. In essence, they feel trapped. They feel intruded upon. Maybe they crave space. They're sick and tired of being engulfed and smothered by their partner. And this need to get away and feeling as if they don't have their own space, they don't have their own freedom, they can't do what they want to do. And they're just suffering through the frustrations of the marriage that they've suppressed and never dealt with. Maybe they're passive aggressive and don't bring it up. And so they respond in ways that don't serve. Or maybe they're constantly fighting, yelling, screaming, spitting, fussing, kicking, whatever the case may be. It's just a contentious environment and they just can't take it anymore and they choose to leave.
Yeah, so oftentimes we find ourselves being in situations, engulfed in situations. We have allowed life to get the best of us, if you would. And now that we come home, we feeling like we have to fight against the world. We have to fight against our spouses. And we're going to use that as an excuse. Oftentimes that really is the case of feeling pushed out because we cannot come to any resolve. We cannot, sit down and negotiate through situations or through problems. We can't hear one another. And then it becomes disrespectful. So now the disrespect has come into place, and the man will feel like you're not going to talk to me this kind of way, and then the woman feels like I'm not going to be disrespected, and this back and forth goes on for so long. Then it becomes the norm, and then it becomes, I'm at my boiling point and I just can't take it anymore, and I'm just going to throw my hands up, throw in the white towel, and I am done. And that's when they find themselves pushed out. We don't want to take responsibility or accountability for the things that we have done. And so then you make the other person, you back them up against the wall, and they have no other choice but feel like they have to escape, if you will.
Yeah. So the mindset of the person who leaves is, you know what, we're just two miserable people. And why live the rest of our lives in misery? We're unhappy. We're depressed. We argue all the time. Another belief is that, you know what, we're just two totally different people. We have different goals, different desires, just different outlooks on life. Now, I hear this constantly from people as a justification and rationalization to leave. And hello, folks, we're all different. Danielle and I, very different. You and your wife, Janella, very different. We are different because God created us that way. And I think that we have not taken the time to honor, celebrate the uniqueness and the difference that God created in each other, and how He brought us together, and how that can actually serve us rather than setting us apart. And so we spend a lot of our relationship trying to fix our spouse, trying to make them just like us. We want them to think like us, respond like us, react like us, process like us, make just do all types of things. And that leads to the disappointment. And both feel frustrated with that type of mindset.
When we get to the place of understanding one another and understanding the fact that we are different, and I have to be able to respect your space and you respect my personality, and I respect your personality. But that goes back to doing work to study one another, to know which buttons to press or not press, so that way we can be in alignment with one another, because now we're not doing things out of frustration or out of sync, because then that causes all type of friction. But we have to be able to spend time. We have to be able to communicate what your likes and your dislikes are, in order to be able to know how to move in sync with one another. But so oftentimes it's my way or the highway. We take that attitude, or because I'm the pick of the crop. You should be glad that you are with me attitude. Then we don't want to do what we have to do to make sure we understand one another. We just keep fighting against one another,
Yeah.
trying to get our points across. I want to have the last word, type of attitude, and that gets nowhere. It serves nobody at all.
Facts. Usually this person who leaves, who's being in essence pushed out because of circumstances in the relationship, they leave for one reason, but oftentimes give another reason for why they're leaving, right? So there's the real issue, but they're not really articulating what the real issue is. So what they'll tell their partner is something else, right? This is what we will call a false positive. They're claiming one thing, but it's really something else. It's a false claim. And when you really listen to what a person says as to why they're leaving, oftentimes, to be quite honest, they are just weak rationales that people give. And it's just like when you dig deep and you begin to press, like when we're in sessions and we're pressing people, like, what's the real reason? It just doesn't make sense. Like the math doesn't add up. Because for something like this, you would just leave and have this permanent decision to end a relationship. There's got to be something more. No, there's nothing else. There's got to be something more. No, there's nothing else. And they have not operated in truth and transparency because they have a problem really revealing things, because maybe there's something deeper that they're hiding, that they're protecting, that they don't want to reveal. But oftentimes there's a whole lot of false positives out there as to why people leave.
And the insecurity of the one that is wanting to leave is so strong, we will find any excuse to do it. I mean, it's raining outside, and I just thought it was the perfect day to go outside in the rain. I think it's a sign that I should leave because there's sunshine on the other side of the rain. We will come up with anything, any excuse to not do the work. And a lot of times we don't want to take the hard looks at ourselves, because when we look at ourselves, we reveal a whole lot about ourselves that we may not like, we may not feel comfortable with. And the real reason why we're wanting to leave is because we don't want to show up as our real selves. And that way we can go away, we can formulate this new image of who we want to be or who we think we are, never deal with the residue of the brokenness and pain and the insecurity that we really have, but we will find this false positive rationale to escape, or to feel as if we're escaping. But the fact of the matter is, wherever you go, you're with yourself. So unless you change yourself, you're just going into another relationship as yourself, not showing up the right way, being fake, right? Because that's what it is. And until you get to the point of being able to accept who you are, then everyone around you can accept who you are.
Well, there it is, guys. We're talking about being pulled out, being pushed out. On the other side of this quick break, we're going to talk about being put out. And let's see what category you find yourself in if you're the one who's on the verge of leaving or have already left. Be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about the 3 ways or the 3 reasons why people leave. First, we talked about how people are often pulled out due to an emotional connection they have with another man or woman. Number 2, how they are pushed out. They're pushed out because of situations in the household that they haven't been able to reconcile, and they get to a point of, I can't take it anymore, and they leave. But now we're going to be talking about being pulled out. There was a comment earlier that Tiffany made. She says, I'm leaving because I'm being pushed out. He keeps pushing me out with his behavior and states that he knows the demise of the relationship is his fault, but he doesn't want to receive help to fix it. That, first of all, that's a miserable situation to be in. That is being pulled out. And so we're going to unpack this. So what does it mean to be pulled out? I'm sorry, that's being put out. Excuse me, put out. Let's talk about this. When a person is put out, they're forced to leave. Now, you may be I'm not sure if you're leaving, Kimberly, or he's leaving, but in essence, one spouse is forcing their other partner to get out. Now, what are the circumstances surrounding this? A spouse has begged, they've pleaded for change, they've made all types of requests for counseling. Let's do whatever we need to do to get help. And oftentimes their concerns, their pleas are completely ignored. Oftentimes one person is feeling not so good about the relationship, and the other one really ignores their concerns. Okay. They've been asking and asking and asking, please, to stop this behavior. And because nothing stops, they get to a point where they just can't take it anymore. And usually the one who's putting their partner out, they're playing the role of the responsible one, and their spouse who's being put out plays the role of the irresponsible one, because there are certain behaviors that they engage in that have been irresponsible. For instance, this is the type of person who may have a drug addiction and can't seem to break that addiction, and it causes havoc and hell on the household. Maybe he has sacrificed his job and family. There's a lot of people who just make poor decisions. They can't keep a job. They're always in and out. They're not good with their finances. And it really has a negative impact on the household. Maybe he or she's in an affair and the spouse knows about it. And they've been patient and they've asked him to stop, asking him to leave. Let's start from scratch. Let's get some help. They've ignored those requests. Maybe your partner is a habitual liar and you can't trust anything he or she says. Maybe they have some type of excessive control and manipulation over you, and it's a power struggle, and you can't breathe because they're trying to control every single aspect of your life. Maybe they're addicted to gambling or some other type of thing. But these are the behaviors that really weigh heavy on a relationship. And the spouse who puts the other spouse out doesn't really want their spouse to leave, but they feel as if, I don't know what else to do. And the only thing that I can think of is for you to get out.
Real talk, and if I may, the flip side of that is the fact that a lot of times we consciously play these roles that if my spouse is begging for help and I refuse to do the work and get the help, I'm putting that person in a position so that they can leave and I not be the one to say I left. I can tell the narrative, oh, she left because she wanted to leave, but I really gave her reasons to leave because I didn't want to put in the work. I didn't want to get the help that she was asking of me. And so we consciously play these roles. And to her point, having the attitude, okay, I know what I've done wrong. I know what I've done, but I'm not going to get help. I don't need to be fixed. We don't need anybody in our business. Right. So I'm not going to do anything. And it's going to force you to the point where you can't take it anymore. And my attitude is literally putting you out. My attitude is forcing your hand, basically. And so I'm going to consciously play this role. So when I tell my family, oh, she left me, he left me, but you gave them reasons to leave. And we consciously play this role. We consciously do this. We are well aware of what we're doing. If I stay stubborn long enough, my spouse is going to get to the point where they're going to leave. And I don't have to be the one to say that, well, it just didn't work. She decided to leave. It just didn't work. He decided to leave. So now it doesn't make me look bad, even though I am the one that was forcing the hand to make the bad situation. So I want to be able to make sure that we be real about our conversations, because that's what's happening a lot of times. We don't want to be the one to say, I left my family. No, we want to say that she left, but I gave her reason to leave.
Exactly. That's very, very, very true. And Roland, in cases where a spouse is put out, this false acquiescence that takes place because, in the marriage, while I was in the home, when you were doing all that complaining and I was denying it and telling them how crazy you are and you need to get yourself together because the problem is really you. Once we're put out, then there's a false equivalence, a false acquiescence. There's immediate remorse. There's an immediate confession of wrongdoing. Baby, 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 please, whatever I need to do, I will change to be, because their goal is to be back in the house, because being put out of the house really detaches them from a lifestyle. It detaches them from a sense of safety and security. It detaches them from all of the pleasures and luxuries that they've engaged in. See, they were committed to the marriage, but not the relationship. Their
Right.
behaviors and their actions prove that they had no value for the relationship, but everything that the marriage offers me, I don't want to lose. So they give this false hope that they're going to change, but they have been here before. They've made these promises. They said, I'll change. They've apologized, and there has been no action to go along with it. But their objective is to get back in the house. Now, if that does not work, then they shift into another thing. Or there's another type of personality that comes out for some people. Now it's just like, my objective is to get back in that house. So I will harass you. I will show up unnoticed. I will get violent. I will create a difficult living situation for you until I beat you down to bring me back into this home, knowing that it will be a toxic environment once you get back in. But because that's all I can think about, because I have nowhere to stay, I have nobody to be with, I'm not sleeping on nobody's couch, I'm not paying for a hotel, I'm not renting a house. None of those things are an option for that person. So they will do everything that they can to force their way back into that household.
The problem is we are so image forced now in these days. We have to withhold this image. We have to withhold the image of, we're married and I have the nice car and I have the nice job and I do this for my family and I do this for my kids. The image of something, and we don't want to lose the image of a thing. However, the reality of that thing is quite the opposite, and we can tell based on how your family shows up. And if we pull them to the side and ask them how do they really feel about you, that image and how they really feel won't go hand in hand. And so when we get to the place and to the point of just being real, as I said before, about our situations and not showing up half-heartedly, then we can have true sound relationships. We can have true narratives about who we really are and stop putting on. But because we're so image driven, we'll do whatever it takes. We're going to put you out and on one hand, and then we're going to try to force our ways back in on the other hand. And we want to just keep that image going, because that way it makes us look good. That way it makes us not look so bad. Like, I'm not that bad guy. But in reality, you really are.
Tiffany says, man, y'all are preaching. Let me get some tissue. I don't want to leave, but I feel like I have no other choice. Well, continue to stay in. Continue to stay tuned, because we're going to guide you through a process. And why haven't you reached out? I'm calling you out. I'm calling you up. I'm calling you up right now, and I'm telling you to call me so that we can talk about your situation, because I see your comments and I see what you're going through. But what are we going to do? So listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. It's starting to get good. I'm going to tell you, we're going to pick back up on this on Monday, because tomorrow is Ask the Experts. So guys, have a wonderful day. Sit down with your partner. Watch this video together. You may be able to turn your situation completely around. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.